in this episode of Art Loft. Vivid ceramic art at Key West Pottery.
That was the first time I realized you could paint on ceramics in a modern but professional way.
Performance artist Michele Laughlin.
One of my main goals is to create artwork that's really direct and interactive and accessible.
New and original works from Origin KC Theater.
So there's no going off stage and catching your breath, thinking about the next thing. I mean, this is one, and there's no intermission in the show. So it's once you start going, it is really like a roller coaster.
And a look at the art of screen printing with Heather Swanson.
I think a lot of my work is based on observations or things that I notice from just pretty much my daily life.
It's all ahead in this episode of Art Loft.
Funding for Art Loft was made possible by Friends of Art and
where there is freedom, there is expression. The Florida Keys and Key West.
Hi, I'm Lolo Reskin, and from the gallery at Key West Pottery, this is Art Loft. Welcome back. I'm Lolo Reskin, coming to you today from Key West Pottery in the Florida Keys. We're diving into dynamic stories on performance, theater, and more, and this week we're starting things off right here at Key West Pottery. Join us as we chat with Kelly and Adam to learn more about this singular space, and if I'm lucky, maybe I'll have a go at the pottery wheel. Take a look.
The pot never forgets the hands that make it, so I think that that's something that I'd want each person to walk away with, is that feeling, that compassion, that creativity, and that love.
Kelly and I are actually both classically trained as painters, and we met in painting school in Bowling Green, Ohio, actually. Kelly is a lifelong potter, and the correlation between painting and ceramics was not obvious to me at first.
I ended up buying some used equipment and starting a studio within our home, kind of doing more the art fair circuit in Ohio. And at that time, Adam had his painting studio in the same space. So while he was painting, I would make pottery, and then he started sort of commandeering my pots to paint on. And eventually, 10 years later, he was converted to the dark side of pottery.
I couldn't make pots, and I had to paint on her pots to begin with. Lo and behold, people loved them. We had a little bit of commercial success with those pots. It was this kind of whole new world between painting, making impression, but also creating something into a three-dimensional reality. Painting for me at that time was mostly about creating an illusion. To make something three-dimensional was a whole new world for me.
Pottery to me is a meditation. I love the process. I love centering the clay. I love the feeling and how it relates inside of me. So kind of using the elements, using the earth, using the water, the fire in the kiln, the air to dry it.
Differentiating between Kelly and I's work has become more difficult over time because, like any good partnership, over time it's really become hers, mine, and ours. So a lot of the things we just simply make together. Those things we sign KWP, Key West Pottery, just our studio maker's mark.
We get people from all over the world that have collected our work. And we also have a really big local following as well. I love making the functional wares, so not necessarily the one-of-a-kinds, but production items. I love art for the everyday.
Being an artist in the Keys is wonderful. There's absolutely no shortage of inspiration. The wildlife, we have exotic birds of every variety that change throughout the year, and that's how we can see the seasons.
We have a full range of works. We definitely gear towards more fine art. Being painters, our work, we really love the one-of-a-kind. So even my production wares, we tend to incorporate imagery and color and try to take a modern approach to an ancient art form. Our work is very unique and very colorful, and color is an indication of health. So having the full spectrum present can give you that feeling, that good vibe.
What I love about the Keys is that there is a certain colloquial nature to the culture down here, where we're populated with plenty of intellectuals. There's a lot of actually quite famous authors, artists, and at the same time, we have this kind of Caribbean-based culture that is very welcoming of anyone. It doesn't seem like it is elitist, or this work is for everyone, and that really kind of speaks to the core value of, I think, why we make the work to begin with. That's why I like it. Plus, the weather's not so bad,
Coming up on Art Loft.
So there's no going off stage and catching your breath, thinking about the next thing. I mean, this is one, and there's no intermission in the show. So it's once you start going, it is really like a roller coaster.
Michele Laughlin is an interdisciplinary artist who works with painting, performance, and mask making. Through her art, she seeks to inspire the childlike wonder in all of us. Here's a look from KNPB Public Television in Reno.
My name is Michele Laughlin, and I'm an interdisciplinary artist. I am a painter and a performance artist and a mask maker and costume designer. As I'm building a mask, the personality starts to appear with the kind of asymmetrical eyeballs and eyebrows and the mouth. The expression starts to form a little bit by chance and a little bit by me molding it that way. When I get into one of those masks, I kind of become that character. Each character is like allowing me to isolate one part of myself and just really build on it and exaggerate it, which is really fun to do. I wear the goat most often, partly because it's a really sturdy one and it works well, the mouth works well. And it also kind of looks like a really ancient animal, and like I kind of feel like a really old person when I'm wearing it. So I'm kind of subverting certain archetypes with different animals. One of my main goals is to create artwork that's really direct and interactive and accessible. I'm not trained in theater. My performances are more of a visual experience than something on stage. One of my most recent performances was for Art Town last summer, where I built a trailer that was towed by a bicycle and rode on the trailer as the coyote, and we would park at each art event or family event for Art Town, and I would draw spirit animal portraits for kids. Art Town is the Reno Arts and Culture Festival that happens during the month of July, and this year I made the poster, which features coyote and other animals in a parade. Art Town put out their call for their poster artists, and I applied with a proposal that involved animals in costumes, so they're kind of human bodies with animal heads wearing all different costumes, and it was accepted, which was very exciting. And then I worked with Art Town to come up with a final concept, and what we came up with was a herd of northern Nevada native animals, but wearing costumes that are kind of significant to the arts and culture of our region in a parade, kind of marching along. The idea of each different version of the arts being represented, so music and dance and theater and painting. There's a bighorn sheep, of course, in the front with his kind of blue and white marching uniform on. And then there's the bluebird, who is wearing this kind of showgirl outfit that's kind of gold. And that's based on all of the people who moved here to be in the Hello Hollywood show. Because a lot of friends that I've had my age, their moms all moved here for that show. There's a rabbit who's wearing this kind of athletic costume, because part of Art Town is being outside and biking around and walking and just being active in our wonderful climate and region. And then there's a pronghorn, because they're a beautiful animal that not everyone knows we have here. And he's marching along with a big drum because the kind of sound of their galloping feet. And then the coyote is behind that, which is kind of my representation of myself. She has a big paintbrush and she's splattering paint all over. And then a burro and a raccoon. A nuisance, but a really lovable little character. My past performances have influenced the Art Town poster for this year. Just combining kind of my love of painting with the performances in a new way. A lot of the masks came from painting, but now this painting is kind of going the opposite direction. The masks are influencing my painting. Having people interact with something that's out of the ordinary makes it feel like an experience that's a little bit of a coincidence and a little bit magical in their daily life. And other goals for my performances are to inspire this kind of childlike wonder in people that we forget about, because that's what drives my artwork, I think.
Coming up on Art Loft.
I think a lot of my work is based on observations or things that I notice from just pretty much my daily life.
The Origin KC Theater in Kansas City is no stranger to ambition. This regional theater has been mounting more and more original works since artistic director Eric Rosen took the reins 8 years ago. Join us as we tag along with KCPT.
Really exciting and terrifying to end the season with this brand new adventure, this Origin KC Festival.
What we're doing together is creating visibility for new stories that need to be told.
What the play is asking us to do is to jump in time as if we were doing jump cuts.
To me, Kate is a shipwreck and her apartment is washed up on the beach, represented by drifted sand dunes and a city bench.
Maybe nothing shows the size of the team it takes, cast and crew, designers, marketers, ticket sellers, better than this opening day meeting at the Kansas City Rep. Actually, it's a twofer. In less than a month, they'll craft 2 world premieres, Lot's Wife and Fire in Dreamland.
Oh, let's not say cold and in despair on that very first page. She'll just be cold and in despair.
Fire first saw the light of day last winter in a staged reading upstairs in the Rep's new lounge.
There's something wonderful about new work, which is because it hasn't been done before, because these are world premieres, you can't look to other productions. Oh, how did they solve that issue? You know, so you have to listen in a different way as the team of artists.
Because I think the whole point was that it was totally worth it, even though Liam Neeson was scared a lot of the time, because they were not messing around.
In the creation of new work, in fact, the audiences do become actually part of the DNA of a piece of theater, because the way they laugh or engage or disengage, playwright hears that, thinks about that, continues to shape the piece.
Do you know what I mean?
The playwright is Rinna Groff. Rinna's been to Kansas City before. She co-wrote the musical Saved, which the theater staged a few years back. This play has New York City in its DNA, born from research that spurred her to read up on Coney Island and the devastating fires that befell it.
It's funny. In the beginning, when I was doing that research, I thought it's going to be set in 1911 and it's going to have something to do with this fire. But as I kept working and as the play kept emerging, then it became about people who were trying to tell that story of that fire that happened long ago, and then one of them became a filmmaker and it became about film in certain ways. It's still a really important part of the play, but the play really is about looking at the past. It's not about the past.
Look, stop. I'm really sorry that he was supposed to be there, but I am not a person who can help you with that.
When it starts, she's in a very frustrated place in her life, and she meets someone who has a dream and has a vision, and she kind of is inspired by that.
I keep telling myself I'll just quit, go back to grad school. It's like there's nothing left to study. I already have 2 masters and a teaching certificate.
Oh, you are a teacher.
Dramatizing the kinds of transitions that often face women in their 30s rings true for Brie Elrod. And the dialogue between her character Kate and Jaap, the Dutch filmmaker that she meets on the boardwalk, is rolling easily off both their tongues, even with the constant changes the script has undergone.
You do have to really listen. You have to really engage with the person. I mean, we're all on stage pretty much all the time. So there's no going off stage and catching your breath, thinking about the next thing. I mean, this is one, and there's no intermission in the show. So it's once you start going, it is really like a roller coaster.
I will show this scene on YouTube, and if many people see it and contribute something, then we move forward.
They're really good with my language.
You walked out on me.
I never walked out on you.
Yes.
And Marissa, I think she really gets my language and gets my sense of humor. There are all these steps of the process. You always keep coming back to what is the story we're trying to tell? Do we need to add anything that would help us to tell that story? And do we need to take anything away that just gets in the way of the understanding of that story?
The Indian guys will be...
One thing that's continued to call for clarity is that third body on stage throughout the play. Let's call him the clapper.
One of our actors who's playing Lance, Brian Huthard, has this slate board that he clacks, and there's a wonderful percussive nature to the way that we have almost jump cuts from scene to scene very quickly. Those clacks have been written into the script from draft 1, but it wasn't until the December workshop here that we realized how much we enjoyed seeing an actor actually making the sound. And when you're ready.
There are many different kinds of relationships between directors and designers. I think it's based on the people and the plays. Marissa is a great collaborator and one of my favorite people to work with.
With so many cinematic elements in play here, a sound designer has plenty to do. In fact, Brendan Honest has been working on this project for over a year. Now, as the action moves onto the Copaken stage, all those clapper snaps, camera clicks, lions' roars, and music cues must be woven together to draw an audience in.
I would love for them to notice all the things I've done with this piece, but I'd like to notice them afterwards when they're talking about it, rather than in the moment. When they're in the moment, they should be watching the actor and being moved by that and being moved by the stagecraft.
The others are no longer getting credit.
Speaking of stagecraft, don't forget there are 2 shows running in the kind of rotating rep the theater hasn't actually done for decades. Thematically, turns out that Lot's wife and Fire in Dreamland are closer than expected. But physically, not so much.
I think maybe we're sharing a wall here and there, but other than that, it is, and I was joking with a friend of mine that it's, as soon as my last moment happens on stage, you hear the tech crew like zzz, zzz, like taking the set down to put up for Lot's wife.
I think Rep's biggest strength is our production teams are incredibly skilled, and whether it's doing something hugely complicated or these sets which are complex but they are designed with an eye towards you have to be able to turn it over in 1 hour, it's really just a question of how you design it and how you build it, and we're good at that stuff.
Eric Rosen figures that putting his own script in the mix signals he's got skin in the game too. 8 years into his tenure, Origin KC is the most visible proof yet of the Rep's commitment to new works.
It's a sort of a spree of celebrations, and we will be offering pre-show conversations we call Making the Play, as well as post-show conversations. Our hope is to deepen audiences' experience with the new work.
A very central thing about the play for me has always been the image of the lion with its mane on fire. And I feel like there are things that are happening that make that image even more alive. But the play, more and more, is becoming about how do we define our worth? How do we decide that what we're doing is what we should be doing? How do we feel at home in what we're doing?
A show that only has one production here and never seen again, we might love, but we prefer a show to start here and then go on to another regional and then go on to New York and then go on to be licensed around the country. We think Kansas City is the ideal origination point for creative work. We're the center of the country. Artists can get here from anywhere. Our own local artists here have so much pride in what we do.
I know you do not like to be late for your work as a petty bureaucrat.
To put the playwright in the center of this originating point is really what the festival is all about.
It's not a story, it's a film.
Next week on Art Loft.
There's a romantic notion about a carousel. There's some fantasy about it. It's just a very nostalgic thing.
Rochester, New York artist Heather Swanson uses advanced screen printing techniques to create beautiful works of art. We joined WXXI Public Broadcasting in the artist studio for a look at her creative process.
My name is Heather Swanson, and I'm an artist. I do screen printing and painting and collage, and I have a studio in the Hungerford building. All of the things that I work on are just like hand-drawn. To create a screen print, first you want to come up with an image that you want to be the basis of your print. You want to decide how many colors it's going to have. Then you make the drawing. Usually what I'll do is pick a palette, like I'll just kind of sketch out the colors on the side, you know, thinking that I want like 5 colors maybe. So then for every color you need to have a corresponding sheet of tracing paper or a clear acetate film, and you basically lay it over the drawing and then trace that area. You know, like the plant is going to be green, and then that's one layer, and then maybe the pot is red, and then that's a separate layer. So you'll eventually have 5 pieces of tracing paper that are your films, and then a screen is coated with a light-sensitive emulsion, and then you take the films and the screen and put them on a light table together. And then basically all of the emulsion in the areas that aren't your drawing have hardened and won't let ink through, and the other place softens and basically just melts away to just the mesh, so then that allows the ink to go through. I think because I like collage a lot, it's really, for me, a shape-based process, because when I make a drawing, then I separate that drawing into several layers. I'm able to kind of get other colors with colors overlapping. Like, I get so excited when I'm printing because I lay down a layer and then seeing the next layer on top of it, it's like, oh man, that's great. And then there's like 20 of them sitting there. So I think the multiples aspect too, that it's still a handmade object and it is hand pulled. It's not like a digital print where I can just print, you know, like as many of them as I want. So I like that it still has a handmade aspect to it, but there are multiples, so I can, you know, give some to people, or like, I like that it has like a kind of a collectible aspect. A lot of my work is based on observations or things that I notice from just pretty much my daily life. So little things that I kind of notice every day end up being kind of moments in my prints. I tend to focus a lot on composition with the screen prints particularly, and I think because it's such a shape-based process, like because I'm thinking in, a blue layer and a red layer and things like that, it definitely relates to collage for me too. So I think even though I'm working on an image, I'm also focusing on like just the composition and the shapes and the color of the print, especially as I'm seeing it build up one layer after another.
Thanks so much for joining us this week on Art Loft. You can always connect with us online by looking up Art Loft SFL on social media. And watch us anytime on the PBS app by selecting WPBT2 as your local station. For Art Loft, I'm Lolo Reskin. See you next time.
Funding for Art Loft was made possible by Friends of Art and
Where there is freedom, there is expression. The Florida Keys and Key West.